So I think I've found a diamond in the rough here. I was scrolling LinkedIn a couple of months ago when I stumbled upon a young designer named Coen Johnson. He is a 19-year-old senior at St. Cloud State University in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And it's not every day you see a 19-year-old senior, let alone a 19-year-old senior in a graphic design program. With numerous internships under his belt already and an Addy Award on his shelf, I knew I had to have him on the show. In this interview, we talk about Coen Johnson's upbringing, some of his wins as a designer, and how he sees his future in the industry. But before we get into it, I'm Ziggy the Designer. I'm a graphic designer who's worked alongside some of the world's most recognizable brands, including United Airlines, Target, and Stanford University. If you like the conversations we're having on this show, please give this episode a like, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe. It'd mean a lot. Let's get into it. So Coen, let's get into it. You're 19, a rising senior at St. Cloud State University, and already you have more professional design experience than most of your peers. How would you introduce yourself to someone who's never met you? Not just as a student, but also as a designer.
So my name is Coen. I'm a student at St. Cloud State University and a graphic designer. I have experience working in a creative agency as well as in-house. And I'm versed in and like to try many different types of graphic design. My main focuses are kind of like branding and illustration though.
So Coen, we talked a little bit about your upbringing and how you grew up homeschooled in a creative household. I mean, you mentioned to me that your dad is an architect, which is awesome, right? How do you think that type of upbringing shaped the way that you see design?
I think it created a mindset and like an environment where art is like an important thing. It's something that has value and that like it was just something we always kind of did and something that was like natural in my life. And yeah, it like created the mindset that like art is something that can be a career and like creative fields that you go into can be careers.
So you've already had multiple internships, which is, a rare thing to see out of a 19-year-old designer. What was that first, proving ground moment where you felt that you could go toe to toe with some of these designers that, have a little bit more experience?
I think kind of that first moment for me was at the Addy Awards last year. I submitted two pieces of my work and won awards for both of them. And that was kind of a really big moment for me because up until that point, I didn't necessarily entered into any big shows or anything like that. And um, it was just kind of like other students I was working alongside. But in that kind of competition, I guess, I was going up against a lot of like really good designers who have spent a lot more time in the industry than I have. So I'd say that for me was kind of the big moment where I like held my own against other like designers who were really experienced.
Right. Yeah. Because as a designer, you do have some awards on the shelf. How do you think, having won those awards, how do you think that has impacted your confidence and your mindset as a designer?
I think it kind of got me to the point. I mean, yeah, like to the point where I was like, this is something that I can like really do and be confident in my skills in. Um, I think when you're in college, it's hard to kind of like, I guess, see where you're at as a designer because you're not in the real world yet. So being able to like win awards for my work, it's like, oh, people like professionals and working designers recognize my work and can appreciate it.
So how would you describe that, moment of getting your first award? Especially, you mentioned going up against all of these, experienced graphic designers. What's that moment like?
It was pretty crazy. I remember when I submitted the work, I was kind of like, I was told by another designer that they were like, "Oh, you should submit your work to this. That'd be really cool." So I kind of submitted and I was like hoping for the best, but wasn't necessarily like expecting anything out of it. And then I remember I got an email saying I had won, and I was kind of like, this is like crazy. And then I went to the event where they kind of announce the winners and hand out the awards and stuff. And it was like even crazier because it's this like there's tons of people there and they have like a big stage that you walk up on that they're handing you these awards. And I was like, I don't know, it was kind of like a really, yeah, big moment.
So you talk about your internships. Tell me about a project, from one of your internships that you're especially proud of, and what was your role and what makes it stand out for you?
I had a lot of fun projects I got to work on through my different internships. One of them with Switchboard, one of the internships I did, they had a client, they're a creative agency. So they had a client who came to them and needed basically everything for their brand. They needed like logo, their whole brand identity, business cards, and they kind of they put me in charge of that project basically. So I got to like do all the things that came along with that. So I designed their logo and all their brand stuff. And then also, yeah, business cards, letterheads, kind of all the other things they needed. And that for me was really fun, kind of having a project that was like my own and that I got to take full lead on.
That's actually pretty cool. As an intern, having that trust from the agency, that must have felt pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was really great. I was kind of like surprised they gave me like, I don't know, it like felt really great for them to give me so much like trust me so much and to give me so much like work to be able to like take the lead on. It was a really great internship experience and I was like super grateful that they let me be in charge of so many of their big projects.
So, with the professional experience that you have so far, Cohen, what would you say is the most valuable lesson you've learned in the industry so far that you think most students don't really learn until after graduation, until they're in the thick of it in these real world projects?
For me, something that like I've realized as I've worked in my internships a little bit, and also something that another graphic designer told me a couple years ago when I was working with them was like, don't be afraid to experiment in college and try things and fail because the stakes are like so low. Basically, your grade is like the only thing that's at stake. And as long as you're like not failing college, you can like experiment and try new things. And I think with my internship at Switchboard for sure, I got a lot of creative freedom to try weird things that were like odd ideas, which was really great. But I don't think that's always the case. And when you're in the professional world, there's a lot more that's at stake there.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's totally different when you're in the thick of an actual client project and it's not like an A grade or a B grade on the line. It's a client contract that you're really fighting for, so it's a totally different game. So when we were chatting, you mentioned that you really look up to the work that Alan Peters does. I mean, he's a great designer. Who doesn't look up to Alan Peters, right? What is it about his work and his approach that speaks to you? And when you look at his work, what elements of his game are you trying to bring into your own?
I really like the way he's able to like in such a simple way communicate messages and stories through his work. Like with his logos, they're very like simple and like elegant, and like there's not a lot of like, I don't know, they're, yeah, like very simple, but they don't lose any of that like messaging that should go along with a good logo. Like there's so much to them even though they're so simple.
So then, do you have any particular favorites from Alan Peters, or is there something that he does, in particular that you really appreciate from him?
um I don't know, I have his book right up there on the shelf.
Oh yeah, I see it up there.
Yeah, I look through it from time to time, but like I like his I like the like animal ones he does. There's like a buffalo and a few bird ones. I think Starling like is one of them that he did for like an auto sales company. I really like those ones. I always enjoy the like animal logos. I think they just have like a lot of character and personality and are super fun.
Awesome. And, speaking of things on your bookshelf, I see you have that Little Prince book up there. I know that holds some weight. Can you tell us a little bit about that project, Cohen?
So for that project, we had to do two different book covers for the book of our choice. So I did the blue one right here and then the other one. And um with this one right behind me, that's the one that won the award. I was looking at all the Little Prince book covers, and all of them kind of had the same theme. It was like the planet, the fox, and then the boy, and sometimes the rose. And they kind of always had the same elements. And I wanted to use those elements because I wanted it to feel, I wanted you to be able to look at it and know what book it was. And so I wanted to stick with those elements, but like use them in a way that they'd never been used before. Because all the ones I was looking at, it was just like the planet and they were standing on top of it or next to it or whatever it may be. So I like using negative space in a lot of my designs, especially since I enjoy logo design. Like that's a big part of logos. So I was like, I kind of approached it like I would approach a logo design. And I was like, how do I like make this simplistic while not losing those elements that you see on all the book covers? So then I stuck the boy and the fox in the negative space of this planet. And it's like, it's unexpected, but it's the expected elements that you'd see for this book. And I think that's kind of what gave it its charm, was like you see it and know what it is, but it's like a new twist on it, I guess.
Thank you for breaking that down, Cohen. I love hearing that type of thinking, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this will appreciate that too. So that was a project for school. You're going into your senior year, and the big thing with the senior year as a graphic designer is the senior project. So what can you tell us about that? Or, is it something that, everybody's gonna have to follow you on LinkedIn to check it out?
Yeah. People should definitely, you know, check out my account so they can see it when it's finished. But the plan is to do a book. And I was kind of like debating for a while what I wanted to do. And I like doing a lot of different mediums. Like I enjoy photography, I enjoy like hand drawing stuff, and I enjoy graphic design. And I was like, how can I kind of combine these all in a way that's like effective? And I also like telling stories or like communicating messages through my work. And I was like, the book is the perfect way to do that. I can incorporate photography, I can incorporate graphic design, and then I'm going to do handwriting and like hand drawn kind of illustrations in it. And then I can tell that story in like one big package. So that's kind of the reason I chose to do a book. And it's basically going to be talking about the idea of like striving towards never-ending goals, or like climbing an ever rising mountain basically, and kind of that journey in our lives and how we always are like chasing something higher.
That's a really exciting project, Cohen. I mean, we've only talked about two or three times, but I feel like that project really connects with, your ambition and your work ethic. So super excited to see that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to start it and yeah, hop into the project.
So then looking beyond senior year, into beyond school, when you think about your design career 5 years from now, what kind of designer do you want to be known as?
One that like challenges the norms of design, as cliche as that can be. Like I want to not just do work that's good, but work that is like beyond that, something that's like changing design and can um do more than just be like good work.
And then last question here, Cohen. If you could give advice to, say, another 19-year-old designer who's just getting started, what would you tell them?
I think be be really passionate and consistent with the work you do. Um and like I said earlier, don't be afraid to try new things, try weird things. Don't be afraid to like fail while you're trying stuff. Um and push past what's just like considered good with your design. Like get it to a point where it is farther than just like checking the boxes of design. Um, and lastly, like don't be afraid to put yourself out there because you know you're not going to get seen if you have good work and don't put it in front of people.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Cohen. I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Folks, that was Coen Johnson. And I'll speak candidly here. After looking at his work, after seeing how he talks about himself and how he talks about his process, and after meeting him virtually here, I can confidently say that Coen Johnson has the potential to be a very great designer in this industry. Look, he has the work ethic. You can sort of see that he's already starting to think like how a design director thinks, and he's just been around creativity his entire life. If he was at a bigger program, right, if he was at a University of Minnesota or a University of Cincinnati or even a Portland State, he would be getting so much more attention. But what do you all think of Coen Johnson? Is he a hidden gem, or do you think the story will change when he gets into the real world? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. That's all I have for you. Be sure to support the show by giving this episode a like, subscribing, and of course sharing this one out. I've been Ziggy the Designer. If there are 2 things you need to know about me, it's that 1, I love design, and 2, I'm very opinionated. I'll talk with y'all later. Bye-bye.